Now for this hour, we start with the Middle East. The UN Rights Office has accused Israel of systematic discrimination against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank, describing conditions as resembling apartheid. UN Rights Chief Volker Turk has said Palestinians face restrictions on daily life, from water and schools to healthcare and land access, under discriminatory laws and policies. The report highlights escalating settler violence, often with the support of or acquiescence of Israeli security forces. More than 500,000 Israeli settlers live in the West Bank alongside 3 million Palestinians. Since October 2023, over 1,000 Palestinians have been killed, while Israeli casualties have totaled at least 44 people. The UN has warned that settlement expansion, unlawful killings, arbitrary detention, and severe movement restrictions constitute almost complete impunity. The report urges Israel to dismantle settlements and systematic discrimination and respect Palestinian self-determination. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Sohail Sadka. He's a political commentator, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Sadka, for joining us once again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, the UN Rights Office has accused Israel of systematic discrimination against Palestinians. What more can you tell us about why UN has, what proved or what led to UN accuse Israel of this?
The UN fundamentally is a body that has been hijacked by enemies of the West and freedom-loving nations into a weapon against those nations, first among them Israel, which is why a majority of all UN resolutions, a majority of all of them are against Israel. It's why, for example, the UN is carefully silent about the ongoing protests in Iran, where the Iranian regime are murdering protesters at will. And yet they put out reports like this, biased, irrelevant, bearing no relation to the situation on the ground. If you recall that over 2 years ago, Israel was struck by surprise by jihadis on its borders, and at that point it resolved that under no circumstances was it going to allow any kind of jihadi armies to amass on or within its borders again. And that is what is happening in the West Bank at the moment. The situation is the IDF will no longer allow armed jihadis to exist there freely. And they are providing a constant level of resistance against them and wearing them down.
Can you describe a Palestinian person's life in under Israel or living in Israel in West Bank?
The situation in the West Bank for the Arabs who have been there since 1967, since Israel took over that territory, having taken it from Jordanian occupation, is far better in almost all regards than any of the Arabs in the nations around. They are wealthier by miles on average than Arabs living in Egypt, Lebanon, or Syria, or anywhere within really 500 kilometers from anywhere in Israel's borders. They have greater freedom of religion, particularly if they are Christians. Approximately 5 to 10% of them are, although most of them have left due to the persecutions of the Palestinian Authority, which was granted some autonomy 30 years ago and used that autonomy to turn to terror. They have generally the ability to work in Israel, a first world society, and build up some financial basis for their families. And I can only hope that if the people who live there, those Arabs, are willing collectively to agree to live alongside Jews and not to continue to try and kill their Jewish neighbors, I can only hope that in the future, perhaps in 25 years, after a generation has passed since the incitement in the textbooks that most of the children are raised in is very hard to erase, perhaps in a generation they will be able to have far greater levels of autonomy, and if they want a state, that's entirely plausible. But right now, due to the ongoing circumstances, and the general views of the population there, it's hard to imagine that happening. But in the meantime, on a material basis, on a purely material basis, they are far better off than Arabs in the neighboring countries, and even on a level of freedom, even though they do not have the right to vote in the Israeli Knesset, and they are under the control of the IDF in terms of certain elements of their life. Nevertheless, in practical freedom terms, they are far freer, for example, than even people in Jordan.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sadka, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay in the region, focusing on Syria. According to reports, Syrian army begins shelling of Aleppo Kurdish areas. The Syrian